The moment my husband stepped onto my airplane with another woman, I had 12 seconds to decide what kind of wife I was going to be. I could scream. I could slap him in front of 200 passengers. I could collapse in the galley and let someone else finish my job. Instead, I looked at the anniversary bag in his hand, the $12,000 necklace around her neck, and the terror spreading across his face. Then I smiled and welcomed them aboard. Before that plane landed, I would learn that the affair was only the smallest part of his betrayal. My husband was not simply leaving me for another woman. He was preparing to steal the company we had built, bury me under millions of dollars in debt, and take the only home my grandmother had left me. He believed I was trapped with him at 30,000 feet. He had it backward. My name is Mara Vance. I was 38 years old, a senior purser for Apex Airlines, and the co-founder of Vance Media Group. Most people knew me only as Adrian Vance's wife. That was exactly how Adrian preferred it. For 14 years, I had worked international flights while helping him build our company between trips. I created the first budgets and used my inheritance to secure our first loan. Adrian became the charming public face, while I remained the quiet owner of 49% of everything. On the night my life changed, I was leading the premium cabin on a flight from New York to Madrid. 6 hours before departure, Adrian had kissed me in our Manhattan brownstone. He said an emergency board meeting was taking him to Denver. I fixed his tie and asked him to call when he landed. He promised he would. At the airport, I checked the passenger list before boarding. My finger stopped at seat 2A, Adrian Vance. The reservation was for Madrid, not Denver. The seat beside him belonged to Leila Sterling, a 31-year-old luxury brand consultant our company had hired 3 months earlier. Then they came through the aircraft door together. Adrian wore the charcoal suit I had collected from his tailor. Leila wore a cream cashmere coat and held his arm. In Adrian's hand was the limited edition leather bag I had given him for our 10th anniversary. Around Lila's neck rested a rose gold panther pendant. 3 weeks earlier, I had questioned a $12,000 charge on our company card. Adrian said it was a gift for Alejandro Velázquez, the Spanish investor considering an $80 million partnership with us. I had thought the description was strange, but Adrian became offended when I asked for the receipt. Now the receipt was walking toward me. Leila gave me the distracted smile people sometimes give an employee they do not intend to remember. Adrian stopped so suddenly that a passenger nearly walked into his back. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Vance," I said. "I hope your trip to Denver is going well." His lips parted, but no sound came out. Leila looked from him to me. "Do you two know each other?" I glanced at her necklace before meeting her eyes. "We have been business partners for 14 years. We have also been married for 11. The confidence disappeared from her face. Adrian finally whispered, "Mara, I can explain." "Of course," I said. "But we cannot block the boarding door. Your seats are 2A and 2B. We have 7 hours together, so there will be plenty of time." I guided them down the aisle. My legs felt hollow, but my voice remained calm. Emergency training had taught me that panic wastes time, while procedure gives you power. When they reached their seats, Leila pulled her arm away from him. Adrian leaned toward her and spoke quickly, but she stared straight ahead. I returned to the forward galley. My junior flight attendant, Hannah Lee, had seen everything. "Mara," she said quietly, "tell me what you need." I wanted to say I needed my life from 1 hour earlier. Instead, I asked her to check the payment record for seats 2A and 2B. She returned before the cabin door closed. Both tickets had been purchased that afternoon. The total was $14,600. The charge went to the corporate card for Vance Media Group. Then my phone vibrated with a security alert from the company bank. A request had been submitted to increase our credit line by $3 million. The application carried my electronic signature, and my Manhattan brownstone was listed as security. I had never seen or signed it. The house had belonged to me before I married Adrian. That was when I understood that the woman in seat 2B was not the whole secret. She was part of a plan. The main cabin door closed with a heavy mechanical sound. The captain announced that the doors were armed, and our aircraft began moving away from the gate. Adrian looked through the aisle toward me, expecting tears, anger, or surrender. I checked the emergency equipment, secured the galley, and returned his stare. There would be no scene in the sky. There would be an investigation. As the plane climbed above New York, the city lights disappeared beneath a blanket of cloud. I sat beside the forward exit and repeated the safety commands in my head. My heart was beating too fast, but every buckle, latch, and indicator was exactly where it should be. At cruising altitude, the seat belt sign turned off. The cabin lights softened to a deep blue. Adrian immediately pressed his call button. I could have asked Hannah to answer it. I did not. When I reached his seat, he forced a smile. Could we speak privately? You may speak to me here, sir. His eyes narrowed at the word sir. This is a misunderstanding. Leela is traveling for the merger. I plan to tell you tonight. Leela turned toward him. You told me she knew. She does know. Adrian said too quickly. She is shocked because the schedule changed. I looked at Leela. Did he also tell you I approved the necklace? Her hand flew to the pendant. He said it came from his personal account. It came from our employees' operating fund. So did your tickets. Adrian lowered his voice. Stop embarrassing her. He had humiliated me, forged my name, and gambled with my home, yet he wanted me to protect his mistress from embarrassment. I smiled. Would either of you care for champagne? Leela said no. Adrian ordered the most expensive bottle we carried and added, we are celebrating. I brought the bottle. Before placing a glass on his table, I asked, are you celebrating the Madrid partnership, the new credit line, or my forged signature? His hand struck the edge of the tray. The glass tipped, spilling champagne across his trousers. Leela stared at him. Forged signature. She is upset, he snapped. Ignore her. I gave him a linen towel. Under it I placed a small note that said, I know about the $3 million. Do not enter my galley. Then I continued the meal service. For the next 20 minutes, I served the cabin as though nothing had happened. Behind my professional smile, I built a timeline of the tickets, necklace, and fraudulent loan. During my scheduled break, I connected my tablet to the secure company system. Adrian had forgotten that I still controlled the main administrator account I had created years earlier. I did not delete anything. Anger wanted destruction, but evidence required patience. First, I downloaded the original credit application and the access history. The document had been uploaded from Adrian's office. My electronic signature had been added at 2:17 that afternoon, while I was already inside the secure crew area at the airport. Then I found a folder I had never seen before. Its name was Project Horizon. Inside were drafts of the Madrid agreement, private messages, and a board resolution scheduled to take effect after the merger. The resolution would remove me from financial oversight for what it called extended operational absence. In plain English, Adrian planned to argue that my flight schedule made me incapable of serving the company. Another document converted my shares into a non-voting class if the new loan went into default. One missed payment could cost me both my ownership and my home. I felt the floor move beneath me, even though the aircraft was flying smoothly. Then I opened a message from Lila to Adrian. Once Mara signs, we announce me as Chief Marketing Officer. After the restructuring, you can file for divorce. She will be too busy fighting the bank to challenge us. Adrian had replied, she will sign whatever I put in front of her. She always does. My sadness became something cleaner. I opened a secure line to my attorney, Naomi Brooks. Naomi had been my college roommate before she became a corporate lawyer. I sent her the documents, the bank alert, and the access history. I asked her to confirm receipt before I made any changes. Her reply arrived 4 minutes later. Do not confront him about the folder. Preserve everything. I am contacting the bank, the board, and a forensic accountant. Change no records except access permissions. You are not imagining this. This appears to be fraud. I read the final sentence twice. You are not imagining this. Those words mattered more than I expected. Betrayal makes you question your own memory. Evidence gives your mind solid ground. I copied the folder into a protected legal archive and enabled a hold that prevented deletion. Then I suspended Adrian's authority to approve transfers above $10,000, as our partnership agreement allowed when fraud was suspected. The system asked me to confirm. I pressed yes. Seconds later, the curtain flew open. Adrian stood in the galley holding his phone. His face was red, and the screen showed one message after another. Transfer blocked. Administrator review required. Legal hold active. What did you do? He demanded. I locked my tablet and stood. I protected my company, I said. He stepped closer. You just destroyed our future. No, I answered. I interrupted yours. One angry man can make the narrow forward galley feel like a locked box. Adrian leaned toward me and pointed at my chest. Restore my access right now. The Velasquez meeting is worth $80 million. Return to your seat. I am your husband. At home you were my husband. On this aircraft you are passenger 2A. You are standing in a restricted crew area and interfering with a crew member. He laughed once, but there was no confidence in it. You would not report me. I placed my hand on the interphone. If I call the captain, this conversation becomes part of the flight record. If you threaten me again, security will meet the aircraft in Madrid. Would you like to test that? His eyes moved to the red handset. For once, his charm could not change the rules around him. Hannah appeared behind the curtain. Is everything all right, Mara? Passenger 2A was returning to his seat, I said. He backed out and whispered, You will regret this. I picked up the interphone and called the captain anyway. I reported the confrontation exactly as it happened. I did not exaggerate, and I did not ask for Adrian to be arrested. The captain logged the incident and instructed the crew to keep him out of restricted areas. When I returned to the cabin, Adrian and Lila were arguing in low voices. Lila's laptop was open between them. I recognized the first page of the merger presentation I had designed. Adrian caught my eye and deliberately lowered the screen. I continued working. Justice is usually built from quiet details. Half an hour later, Lila approached the galley alone. Her face was pale beneath her makeup. I need to ask you something, she said. Did Adrian really forge your signature? You wrote that I would sign whatever he put in front of me. Her expression changed. She had not expected me to know about Project Horizon. He said the restructuring was legal, she replied. He said you had agreed to leave the company after the merger. Did he say I agreed to lose my house too? She looked away. What did he promise you? Lila, a position, equity, a future, she swallowed. He said your marriage had been over for years. Our marriage was alive when he kissed me 6 hours ago, I replied. Lila gripped the edge of the counter. Then she said something I did not expect. There is a blue folder in his bag. He would not let it out of his sight at the airport. He said it was the only copy that mattered. The blue folder. Adrian trusted paper more than servers. A signed original could contain terms missing from the digital drafts. Why are you telling me? I asked. Lila touched the necklace again. Because I just found another employment agreement on his laptop. It gives me a title for 6 months, then allows the board to dismiss me without compensation. He was using both of us. I did not forgive her. She had known I existed and helped plan my removal, but she could still be useful. Do not take the folder. I told her. Do not touch his files. If you want to protect yourself, preserve the messages on your own devices and speak to a lawyer when we land. She nodded and returned to her seat. Minutes later, my tablet vibrated. Naomi had sent an update. The bank had paused the new credit line because my signature was disputed. 2 independent board members had called an emergency meeting. Our forensic accountant had also discovered a company named LS, a strategy holdings receiving monthly payments from Vance Media. Us were Lila Sterling's initials. The transfers totaled $1,800,000. Was Lila another victim? Or was she performing innocence because the plan was failing? I messaged Naomi that Lila might have evidence but could also be involved. Naomi advised me not to accuse her and not to make promises. Then a warning appeared on my screen. Someone in New York was trying to delete Project Horizon. The account belonged to Owen Price, our chief financial officer and Adrian's oldest friend. The legal hold blocked the deletion, but revealed that Adrian had not built the plan alone. I watched the access log as Owen tried a second folder, then a third. Each attempt was automatically preserved. Naomi called through the secure connection. I put in one earphone and kept my voice low. Mara, she said. The board has suspended Adrian and Owen pending investigation. But there is a problem. The final merger authorization may already have been signed. If Adrian gives the paper original to Velasquez before we obtain an injunction, he could create a legal disaster. The original is on this plane, I said. Can you secure it? I looked at Adrian's leather bag beneath his feet. Not legally, I answered. It is passenger property. Then do not touch it. I will seek an emergency court order. We need time. Time was the one thing we had very little of. The aircraft was already halfway across the Atlantic. At that moment, Adrian stood and reached for the leather bag. He looked toward the galley, then toward the lavatory. In his hand was a blue folder and a silver cigarette lighter. Adrian walked toward the rear of the premium cabin, carrying the blue folder under his jacket. Smoking on an aircraft was forbidden, but the lighter suggested something worse. If he destroyed the original documents, he might erase proof of the forged agreement. I followed at a professional distance. Before he reached the lavatory, I said, Mr. Vance, may I see what is in your hand? He turned. Personal documents. And the other hand. He slowly opened his fist, revealing the lighter. Several passengers watched as Hannah moved closer. You know the rules, I said. You cannot use that on board. I was not going to use it. Then return it to your bag and return to your seat. Stop treating me like a criminal, he said. Then stop giving me reasons to treat you like a dangerous passenger. Turbulence shook the aircraft. The seat belt sign sounded, and the captain told everyone to sit. Adrian stumbled, and the folder slipped from beneath his jacket. It struck the floor. Several pages slid into the aisle. Hannah collected the loose pages for safety, stacked them without reading, and returned the folder in full view of 3 passengers. But one page had landed face up near my shoe. I saw my name. I saw a signature that looked like mine. Above it were the words irrevocable personal guarantee. The Adrian returned to his seat with the documents. I called the captain again and reported the lighter, the attempted lavatory entry, and the loose papers. The captain decided that security would meet the plane after landing. Adrian had created that consequence himself. Back in the galley, Naomi's next message arrived. Emergency order granted. Adrian has no authority to execute the merger or transfer company property. Velasquez's counsel has been notified. My home was not safe yet, but the trap had stopped closing. Then Leela pressed the call button. When I approached, she held out her phone. You need to see this. On the screen was a chain of messages between Adrian, Owen, and Leela. She had exported the conversation to her attorney and offered to preserve it for investigators. The messages showed that Lila knew about the plan to remove me, but Adrian had lied about the loan and forged signature. She was not innocent, but she was not the architect. One message from Owen made my skin go cold. After Madrid, trigger the default. The house covers the gap. Mara will settle rather than risk publicity. They never intended to repay the loan. Losing my brownstone was not an accidental possibility. It was a planned step. My grandmother, Evelyn, raised me after my parents died and bought that house after 30 years as a teacher. Before she died, she told me, never let anyone convince you that love requires you to surrender your foundation. For years, I thought she meant money. At 30,000 feet, I finally understood that she meant identity. I described the message to Naomi, but Lila would have to provide the data herself. Then I told her, when we land, tell the truth. Do not change one message to make yourself look better. Will that help me? She asked. It will help the truth. What it does for you is no longer my responsibility. She began removing the necklace. Keep it, I said. The forensic accountant will want to trace it. Across the aisle, Adrian watched us. He could not hear our words, but he could see his control disappearing. As passengers slept, I continued my duties. Each time I passed Adrian, his expression changed from anger, to bargaining, to fear. Near the end of the flight, he handed me a folded napkin. It said, we can save the company. I will end things with her. Please do not throw away 14 years. I read it once and wrote beneath his sentence, you threw them away. I am saving what is left. I returned the napkin. When dawn appeared beyond the windows, Madrid spread below us in soft golden gray. The captain announced our descent. The phones began reconnecting to cellular networks. Adrian's screen filled with notifications. The board suspension arrived first, then the bank notice, then the emergency court order. Finally, an email from Velasquez Group announced that the merger meeting was cancelled pending a fraud investigation. Adrian turned toward me with naked panic. What have you done? He whispered. I checked his seatbelt and made sure his tray table was closed. I told the truth before you could sell the lie, I said. The wheels touched the runway with a violent burst of sound. The engines roared as the aircraft slowed. For everyone else, we had arrived in Madrid. For Adrian, it was the moment his stolen future crashed into reality. The 2 security officers waited outside the aircraft because Adrian had entered a restricted galley, threatened a crew member, and carried a lighter toward a lavatory. The captain spoke with them while I thanked the other passengers for flying with us. Leela left first. She carried the anniversary bag but stopped beside me and placed its handle on the floor. This belongs to you, she said. No, I replied. It belonged to the marriage you helped him disrespect. I do not want it back. She left it beside Adrian's seat and walked down the jet bridge alone. Adrian approached the door holding the blue folder against his chest. His suit was wrinkled, and his face looked older than it had 7 hours earlier. Mara, please, he said. Tell them this was a family disagreement. It became an aviation matter when you entered my galley and refused an instruction. The report is accurate. The company will collapse. You will lose everything too. I looked at the man I had loved, and for the first time I saw the method beneath his charm. Every warning was a threat. Every apology was a negotiation. Every promise required me to pay the price. Maybe the company will fail, I said. But I will not commit fraud to keep it alive. One officer asked Adrian to step aside. He was not arrested, but he missed the car arranged for the merger meeting. I watched him stand under the airport lights with no one left to impress. By the time I reached the crew hotel, Naomi had filed for divorce and requested an order protecting my separate property. The board had removed Adrian and Owen from all systems. A Velasquez Group agreed to return every document it had received and cooperate with the audit. I did not sleep. Anger had carried me across the Atlantic. Now grief arrived. I cried for the woman who believed hard work could repair any marriage, and for the memories now contaminated by questions. But I never cried because I regretted stopping him. 3 days later, I returned to New York with my attorney and a temporary order protecting the house and company records. Adrian could collect only personal items under supervision. Inside, he tried one final performance. He stood in the room where we had celebrated our wedding and said, "Leela manipulated me. Owen created the loan documents. I made mistakes, but I still love you." I asked him one question. "When you planned the default, did you ever picture me standing outside this house after the bank took it?" He said nothing. That silence ended our marriage more completely than any confession could have. The 5-month investigation uncovered false consulting payments, personal travel, and 3 forged approvals. Owen created the shell accounts. Adrian authorized the transfers. Leela returned much of the money she received and cooperated through her attorney. I did not become her friend. Cooperation did not erase her choices, but her messages proved Adrian planned to trigger the loan default after the merger. Adrian's lawyers argued that I had destroyed company value by blocking the deal. Naomi answered with the access logs, the bank documents, and the court order. No legitimate merger could be built on a forged guarantee. The civil court protected my brownstone and awarded damages. Adrian pleaded guilty to wire fraud and falsifying business records. He received prison time, restitution, and a ban from serving as a corporate officer. The people sometimes asked whether seeing him sentenced felt like revenge. The honest answer is yes, for a few minutes. Watching the court remove the power he had abused felt satisfying. But the deeper victory happened outside the courtroom. Vance Media survived. We installed new leadership, sold the risky division, repaid legitimate debt, and required 2 independent signatures for major transactions. I also changed the company's name to Evelyn Media, after my grandmother. We also created a protected reporting system so the next truth would not depend on a wife discovering her husband on an airplane. 6 months after Madrid, the divorce became final. I kept the brownstone, and my retirement savings, and my shares. Adrian kept the personal debts he had hidden and the consequences he had created. That evening, I stood alone in my grandmother's front room. The house was quiet. For years, quiet had meant waiting for Adrian to come home. Now it meant peace. I placed my wedding ring in an envelope for my attorney. Then I opened every window and let the spring air move through the rooms. For the first time in 14 years, I did not ask what Adrian wanted, feared, or needed. I asked myself where I wanted to go next. 1 year after Madrid, I stood inside another forward galley at London's Heathrow Airport. I had chosen to keep flying 2 international trips each month. Some people thought that after becoming company chair, I should leave the uniform behind. But flying had never made me smaller. Adrian had made me believe it did. In the air, I was decisive and trusted. Keeping that life was not returning to the past. It was reclaiming something that had always been mine. Before boarding began, my phone rang. It was Naomi. "I have good news," she said. "The final guarantor claim has been closed. Your property is completely clear." I looked through the small window at the runway. Completely. No hidden lien. No appeal, it is over. After the call, I remembered the woman smiling at an aircraft door while her life cracked open. She thought control meant never showing pain. I know better now. Strength was what came after the smile, asking for help, preserving evidence, and admitting that a person I loved had chosen to harm me. Justice could not restore my marriage, but it could protect the life that remained. Evelyn Media was healthy and honest. I stepped down from daily leadership but kept a board seat, giving me time to fly and build a life beyond someone else's ambition. Leela sent me one letter after Adrian was sentenced. She apologized without asking for forgiveness. She wrote that she had confused being chosen with being valued. I understood that sentence, because I had made a different version of the same mistake. I never answered. Some endings do not require another conversation. As passengers began entering the aircraft, Hannah joined me at the door. She had recently been promoted and was leading her first international cabin. "Nervous?" I asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "Good. It means you understand the responsibility. Trust your training, pay attention, and do not be afraid to speak when something feels wrong." She smiled. "I learned that from you." The words touched me more deeply than she knew. During boarding, a man in a charcoal suit stepped onto the plane. My body remembered Adrian before my mind recognized the stranger. Then the man smiled, showed his boarding pass, and continued. I breathed out. Healing did not mean forgetting. It meant the memory no longer controlled the next decision. So, when I look back, this is what happened. I welcomed my husband onto my flight and discovered him traveling with his mistress. The necklace around her neck and the corporate tickets exposed an affair. A false loan application revealed something more dangerous. While we crossed the Atlantic, I preserved the evidence, protected the company, stopped a fraudulent merger, and learned that my husband and his closest friend had planned to take my shares and my home. By the time we landed, the lie he had built was already falling apart. In the months that followed, the courts finished what the truth began. The lesson I carry is simple. Betrayal does not always arrive looking cruel. Sometimes it kisses your forehead, tells you not to worry, and asks you to sign one more document. Love should never require blind trust. Ask questions. Keep access to your own records. Understand anything connected to your name, your money, or your home. And if someone calls your careful attention disloyalty, remember that honest people do not fear honest questions. I also learned that revenge and justice are not exactly the same. Revenge was the flash of satisfaction I felt when Adrian's merger disappeared from his phone. Justice was slower. Justice was the bank protecting my house, the employees keeping their jobs, the stolen money being returned, and the people responsible answering for what they had done. Most of all, I learned that being betrayed did not make me foolish. Trusting someone I loved was human. Staying silent after I knew the truth would have been the real surrender. If you have ever had to rebuild your life after someone broke your trust, I hope my story reminds you that the moment you discover the truth is not the end of your life. It may be the first moment your life truly belongs to you again. Thank you for watching and for staying with me until the end. If this story moved you, please like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more emotional stories about betrayal, courage, revenge, and justice. The boarding line continued. I stood tall, placed one hand on the open aircraft door, and welcomed the next passenger with a real smile. I once thought that flight to Madrid was the night my life fell apart. Now I know it was the night the door finally opened.